Hello, firstly to those of you I haven't met, I'm Trevor's son Spencer. Whilst I would have preferred to have been there in person, my girlfriend and I are in the process of producing another grandchild, codename Awesome for Dad, and with impeccable timing it's all happening at the same time. I'm not sure this approach is going to work, but I wanted to say something and this is my only method of doing so. I hope you'll bear with me. Thanks to all of you for coming. What's become apparent over the course of the last difficult and trying 12 months is that Dad was very well liked. When you're part of a family, this is something that perhaps you don't realise. However, through the warm messages of support and the expressions of shock at Dad's plight, it's become apparent that Dad is more popular than I gave him credit for. When you stop and think about it, it's not difficult to see why. Dad was very funny, reliable, loyal, genuine, modest, dedicated and most of the time good company. Though before we phone up the Pope and lobby for canonisation, he could be absolutely infuriating at times. See Mum or Susie for further details. I think it's fair to say that Dad enjoyed working, some might say unnaturally so, i.e. me. Whilst he never managed to instill the same level of dedication into me, he put as much as he possibly could into making his career a success. With support from Mum and others, and it has to be said some good fortune, he navigated the maze of corporate life reasonably smoothly. Never one for shirking hard work or responsibility, it seems that his ability and work ethic were widely admired. Professional to the last, even when seriously ill, he avoided taking time off, even when he was having radiation and chemotherapy. This despite my promptings that he could probably justifiably skive off and watch the Olympics, the Ryder Cup, the European Soccer Championships on his massive new TV. I hope that some of his colleagues have joined us today, though if it's a weekday, Dad would probably be wondering why you're not at work doing your jobs. I'm sure you've heard the expression jack of all trades, master of none. Well, as far as sport goes, Dad was more of Trevor of lots of sports, annoyingly good at most of them. You can learn plenty about a person by the way someone plays sports. To my knowledge, Dad never cheated. Not once. Even when suffering from a brain tumour and severe chemotherapy side effects, he had to be seriously cajoled into playing off the forward tees at golf. And even then he'd still plough on to the bitter end. Dad enjoyed tennis, badminton, golf and wasn't averse to watching a whole host of other sports. Golf also provides a valuable insight into Dad's personality. Firstly, this wouldn't be Dad's funeral without one of his children mentioning his near legendary frugality. Dad could have afforded the finest set of golf equipment that money could buy. He could have had it all custom made, all personalised, he could have played the best balls and he could have only hit them once. He could have spent every week playing expensive courses, exclusive courses while having a carry his bag. But that might have cost more than $25 and I'm not sure that Kmart do custom club fitting anyway. Without doubt, Dad has the worst golf equipment I've ever seen. Saying that, I've spent many an annoying round being beaten with a set of clubs that cost less than the driver in my bag. This leads on to my second point. Without distractions of flash gear and the need to show off, Dad could concentrate on the things that made golf important to him. Those were spending time with his friends outside, and quite often moaning all the way round about not being as good as Tiger Woods, regardless of the fact he'd never taken a lesson in his life and rarely practiced. I hope some of his golf buddies are here, and I know that he enjoyed your company and he spoke of you often. Finally, if there's one thing Dad's taught me about sport, it's that if something's worth doing, it's worth taking far too seriously and ruining everybody else's fun. Don't get me wrong, I have fond memories of my childhood, but this is one of Dad's less known, well-known idiosyncrasies. He never ever let me win. Most parents, it seems, encourage their children by a process of allowing small triumphs to build self-confidence. Not Dad. I remember a few 21-0 spankings at table tennis, several 6-loves at tennis, and innumerable whippings at made-up beach sports, a Jenkins family tradition. I'm just glad that he never decided to teach me boxing. However, there is an honesty to this approach that I have appreciated as I've got older. I value victories gained genuinely over Dad above all others. Coincidentally, it seems that the more of those victories there were, the less of that particular sport Dad and I seem to play. Again though, I'm indebted to Dad in a true English way. He instilled into me that sport isn't just about winning. Your conduct in losing says as much about you as the ability to show grace in triumph. Though looking at the statements in the cold light of day, it probably explains why the UK is so rubbish at sport. What to say about Dad's family life? Well, I think the best way of looking at things is the way that those that care for him have pulled together to support him in the final days of his life. My sister Susie and my mother have performed remarkably, providing high quality care to Dad in his hour of need. This is even more unusual given that Mum and Dad have been divorced for over 10 years. This is probably wildly inappropriate at this point. I've always wanted to do this on TV. Hello Mum! Dad also found renewed happiness in his relationship with Eulogy, which I'm thankful for. Again, it was very clear that as the end approached that he cared for her and was happy to have her close. I know he's looking forward to a shared retirement that unfortunately now will never be realised. One of the many things that his cruel disease has robbed him of. Bird watching was one of the constant sources of amusement in the Jenkins household. It was Dad's choice of hobby. He loved ornithology, that's bird watching for those not in the know. Again, information about Dad's personality could be garnered by watching his approach to this hobby. While certain other twitchers would occupy viewing platforms using spotting scopes slightly more powerful and expensive than the Hubble Space Telescope, Dad was happier creeping around in the bushes with his cheapo binoculars on his own, finding things to look at. It has to be said that it hasn't entirely been smooth sailing, since it's not a hobby shared with equal enthusiasm within the Jenkins clan. See, to some people this might sound exciting. Snow geese breed in the Arctic tundra and winter in farmlands, lakes and coastal areas in the American South, Southwest and East Coast. These attractive geese only occur in North America and make an annual round trip of more than 5,000 miles at speeds of over 50 miles an hour or more. To the rest of the Jenkins crew, it indicated the possibility of a seriously boring day out. In this particular case, we were promised spectacular views of many thousands of migrating snow geese at a wildlife refuge in Brigantine, New Jersey. Anyhow, on arriving at said destination on a has-to-be-said a grey and miserable day, we were confronted with acres of boring, stinking marshland devoid of any life whatever. Actually, that's not fair. I think we did see a seagull. We spent a good hour trying to find anything worth looking at. After some serious lobbying, it looked like Susie and Mum had convinced Dad to give it up as a bad job. Only for seconds later, Dad to proclaim, "Look, there's one." After much frantic grabbing of binoculars, we looked into the middle distance at a nondescript scrap of white. It may have been Susie who first raised doubts about the veracity of the sighting. From memory, the conversation went something like this. "Susie, it's not doing very much, Dad." "Dad, well, it has travelled down from Arctic Russia. It's probably a bit tired." "Me, give us the binocs, sis. I want to have a look." "Dad, this is really exciting. I've always wanted to see one of these." "Me, Dad, that's a white plastic bag. The only place that might have migrated from is a Target superstore." "Dad, it can't be." "Oh, it is, isn't it? Time well spent, I think you'll all agree." Don't even get Mum started on the woodchuck and frog walk. Having been taken to some godforsaken wilderness in the pitch black only to hear the words, "No, you don't get to see them, you just get to listen." But Dad loved it. He derived enormous pleasure from spotting birds and telling us what they were. He also taught me another valuable life lesson that will stay with me forever. If you think you know more than the person you're talking to, if you sound confident and authoritative, you can get away with almost anything. It's only been in recent years that Dad has confessed the less than supernatural powers of observation. Confronted with endless, "What bird is that, Dad?" from his enthusiastic progeny, Dad was never without an answer, as various distant black specks were confidently categorised as green woodpecker or pied wagtail. It's only recently become apparent to me that the answers might as well have been dodo or the lesser spotted fiction. I'd have still believed him. In conclusion, finally, I'd like to thank those who have provided support to my dad or the rest of my family in what has been a really trying time. I'm not sure whether any of the compassionate care organisation will be here, but their help has been invaluable. Dad was treated with dignity and respect regardless of the position he was in. I'd like to thank the medical team that Dad kept confounding. I believe regardless of the final outcome that the care he received improved both his longevity and quality of his life. It certainly brought some precious time for his family, which I'd like to thank them for. To his friends, I very much hope it's a case of gone but not forgotten. I'll remember Dad as fit and healthy, and I'm sure whenever I'm trying to identify a bird, he'll be on my mind. The last thought, however, always goes to the living. Dad's loss will inevitably affect those closest to him. CJ, Susie, Brian, Mum and Eula. I'd appreciate your support for them at this time. Whilst Dad lived a full life cut short too soon, many families are confronted with the horrors of the disease that struck Dad down in a more traumatic manner. Travelling to Sloane Kettering with my sister proved to be an unwelcome eye-opener. To those of you that have already contributed, thank you. To those yet to do so, if you can spare a few dollars to support the work done by Cure Search, who are looking to help children afflicted by cancer, please do so. Susie can provide details if required. Thank you for listening.